Hello and welcome back to Boring Dad Gaming, where today we're going to be playing some more Roottreemania. So, apologies again for these sort of audio issues at the end of the last episode. I said I would just kind of show a few things I put in place after I'd muted it by accident. So I felt fairly confident in saying that Christine Garland, we don't know maiden name as yet, was Guy Hudson's second infidelity, or at least the second infidelity that led to a child being born. We got David Fellows in there for now, still. Given that this happened around 78, 79, I kind of feel that probably is about right. Maybe 77, 78 even. So we know Stephen Garland. Now, the reason I felt confident putting her in there was that that was the only Guy Hudson infidelity that led to a marriage. So we've got... now, I wasn't able... Unlike the first main game, I wasn't able to say unknown male or female, but we know that their first child was a boy. Don't know about the second. But yeah, so a few things I want to do today to kind of really kick things off, hopefully. I also put Elias in there, incidentally. Yeah, so one thing I think we will do is have a look a bit more at the evidence chain. These notable events, there's still Roottrees Rift. We could look at Clark again, that might reveal some new info. Roottreemania and even Anonymum. It might have relevant info, I'm not exactly sure. However, the first thing I wanted to do was to have a look at the previously on, just in case there, because it does say there's inspiration here, so there might be stuff that kind of sheds new light on new avenues to investigate. I may not read all this out loud, but I'm going to sort of scan it a bit. Yeah, founded by them. Butler County, Pennsylvania, where the company was initially located. So that's true, but we've had quite a few, particularly with the 5Ps thing, a lot of references to Portland. So I'm hoping to find a Portland magazine or newspaper at some point. Elias, Carl and Rayner on the cover of magazines could be useful. Other notables, Lauren, Miracle. Now, Miracle has been involved in the recent news in sort of denying that 5P specifically was a Roottree, I think. So that could be something that's worth searching. Lauren's two diaries. They probably won't shed a lot of light onto what we're doing at the moment. Candy flavors, 5 presidents. Stephanie Jones and Brian Jones were featured in campaign posters, led to Caroline Morden's art book. Yeah. Younger Rootrees. Yeah, November was difficult to place. That is true. A few dead ends and red herrings. Yeah. Okay. Not a huge amount there, but we'll keep in mind that we might potentially want to refer to some of this stuff. Kind of just a reminder of what we did, really. So, now, is it here? He mentioned a specific magazine or newspaper very early on in our conversation with him. Can I... I just wondered if I can see like a conversation log. No, that's soundtrack. I remember thinking it sounded a bit like Newsweek, which is obviously an a real. I think it's a I think I'm right in saying it's a magazine in America. I've never actually had a copy. I've seen it in American shows and stuff, I think. Not ready for a hint yet. Was it News Talk? Do you have to... I think it was capitalized. I don't know if that's necessary. Oh, I've spelled his name wrong. Ah! Yeah, that's an old article. We got anything newer? I doubt he's been in Teen Blast, but you never know. 70-year-old preacher. Okay. Let's look here. There might be something more recent here. Okay, so this is a more recent article. The previous flyer for 3 generations of miracles has been replaced. Be a part of history. The oldest living Roottrie reprises and retells his incredible true story. Miracle Roottrie grew up as one of the famous 5 pieces, living a life of wealth and luxury. But fortune was nothing compared to the powerful force of the Almighty. Doctors determined he was destined to die young, but fate had different plans. He has lived a long and fruitful life. However, he's now in his 70s, and his age is beginning to make life on the road more difficult. So consider this your last chance to see him in a town near you before he settles back down in Pennsylvania. So he's somewhere different at the moment. In this intimate evening, Miracle will reminisce about his famous history. He'll discuss his family's saints and sinners and provide a unique perspective on one of the most notable families in the United States today. Learn what originally drove him away from his fortune and into the arms of religion, and learn how his life has become more wealthy in spirit than it ever could have been from his inheritance. Also lists the churches he'll be appearing in, and mentions tickets can be purchased at their local services. Noticeably absent are any mentions about Miracle's news appearances. I would like to see this flyer. Does that mean I should search for this again? Oh, it's the same page, isn't it? But I want to know this. Why can't I know the exact locations? I might be able to build off that. Is there anything that I didn't look at this welcome text before? Is there anything here that might help? Okay, apparently this had an explanation about second cousins before, but there doesn't appear to be anything interesting in it or useful there. It doesn't. I'm not seeing anything here I can jump onto. Okay, well let's... Oh, I'm sure this magazine was called something... I'll just go back to Googling like 5Ps and that sort of stuff. Will it come up in here? That was it. News time. Okay, so that's probably in the periodicals then. So let's search that. Right. And let's do 5Ps. Here we go. We got a picture. Felix Fellows, aka 5Ps, famously appeared on the cover of Newstime, kicking off Roottreemania. Then, got a new periodical now. That's probably hopefully going to result in some stuff for us. Then a week later, Miracle Roottree appeared on the cover in an article that focused heavily on 5Ps as well. Both articles, as well as a close-up 5Ps photo. Cool, so let's have a look at these. Alright, well this will be that first one. And there he is in all his glory. Okay, I can't click those. Let's read this. 5Ps, aka Felix Fellows, appeared on the cover of Newstime holding a photo of his mother and Guy Hudson. The article concerned his insistence that his father was Guy Hudson. The story was dramatic and sensational, and initially dismissed as fake until a DNA test proved that he was related to Guy Hudson. 5P says that his mother, Joanna, was Zach Morden's secretary when he retired, and then Guy Hudson's secretary for only one or two weeks after that before she quit. The first few weeks that he was president, his parents divorced when he was 4 after his father learned of the affair. Felix and his mother then moved to Portland because she was afraid for her and her son's life. Let's maybe put some of this in. So we can put his picture in now. There we go. So in terms of name, we have Joanna, but that's about it so far. Let's go back. He grew up with her. I'll put in secretary for now, although it sounds like she may have had a later occupation. He grew up with her until he was 16, but one day his mother never came home from the movie rental store where she worked for the register. Oh, the next morning they found her dead from an overdose in her car. She'd stolen all of the cash from her drawer and spent on heroin, so she wasn't a secretary at the time of her death. She was retail? I'll put for now. I don't know if, like, cashier is anything. Oh, cashier. Okay, well, that is a bit more specific, isn't it? As Felix went through her belongings, the only things he had to remember her by were a hairbrush she always used, some photos, and a stuffed animal from her childhood. But then he found it, a box hidden in the back of her closet. Inside were love letters and photos related to Guy Hudson, as well as a letter from his father containing threats. He threw it all away, with the exception of the one photo he appears with on the cover of Newstime. He says it was the only one where they were dressed, the only one not from the affair itself. The picture is shown in full inside the magazine and was added to evidence. Okay. The magazine also includes some additional history about 5P's career. Felix Fellows was born to Riley and Joanna Fellows. So her father is... Oh, sorry, Riley Fellows. Don't know mother's maiden name as yet. But has never rapped without a moniker. He tried to find success by opening for other artists and even by selling CDs on street corners in Portland. He has only recently started going as 5Ps to harness the power of his lineage. The writer did some research into the truth of these claims and was able to confirm that Joanna did work for the Roottree company as a secretary sometime during the early to mid-70s. He also confirmed she died of a drug overdose and that Felix went into foster care soon after. Now, I don't think his foster care thing is going to be listed here, by the look of it. So, well, that's fine. They were unable to track down his father. They also reached out to the Roottrees company, but at the moment the company's blanket statement was, since the release of a recent book, Roottree has seen an overwhelming number of false ancestral claims. None have been factual, and nearly all have been knowingly dishonest. We encourage individuals to reach out to us in an official capacity, as opposed to attempting to use our name in the media for publicity. Okay. Now let's have a look at the older photo. So this is Guy. We recognise Guy from the last game. Roottrees family picnic. That could be an interesting thing to look up. So let's take a couple of mug shots there. He claims that Joanna and Guy Hudson were having an affair. Yeah, okay. Now, we got Old Man Miracle here. Charlatans and thieves! Miracle Roottree fires back. Let's take his photo. Can I get one? Okay, so the reflection, it looks like he's looking at the cover of the previous article. Right. Miracle Roottree appeared on the cover of Newstime shortly after 5Ps did. He vehemently denied that 5Ps was a Roottree. The article was from before the DNA test that proved it. Miracle doesn't focus much on the details of 5P's accusations regarding his mother and Guy Hudson. Instead, he comes across as exhausted at the events that have been going on behind the scenes, as well as the character of those he feels are attacking his family. He starts with 6 pieces content. He says that although most of the book was based in fact, it left out anything that wouldn't fit the agenda. He points out Sam's daughter still earns a generous salary for overseeing the farm division at Roottree, and that Sam did the same before her. That Sam's family was not destitute, and that really it was only her son who chose to take on a job with no salary. He claims that though they didn't have to, the family helped pay for her son's medical bills after voting that it was the right thing to do. Miracle also says that the story about his father Elias shunning EC was one-sided, leaving out Edward Clancy's blame in the whole thing. Elias gave him a simple ultimatum: stop sinning or be disowned. Miracle says it was his own choice. It was not much of a choice, was it? And that Elias allowed him to earn food and shelter on the company's dime was a kindness, especially considering that he and John continued to live together. Miracle then pivots to the fallout from Six Pieces. He recounts a deluge of claims to the Clanstead Trust that the family have been subjected to. He doesn't cite any specifics, but says that every time someone comes forward, the family devolves to arguments. They've had to hire an outside legal team to help, but so far every case has been demonstrably, laughably false. All they do is tarnish his family's reputation. He focuses on 5Ps who appeared on news time before him. He calls him a grifter and a delinquent and says he's using their name and products to sell filth to the masses. Of all the accusations, he says this is the most dangerous because it exposes the world to hatred. He cites 5Ps' lyrics as violent, sexist and ungodly and prays the boy will repent, retract his lies and find religion. Lastly, he turns to the future. Miracle states that those that wish to hear the true story can join him on his farewell tour this upcoming fall. Here we go. The Miracle's Roottree are planning on touring the country's churches one last time, and that now at age 71, Miracle is the oldest living Roottree. While he plans to continue preaching at his own church in Butler County after the tour, this is your last chance to hear the truth from the man with the most complete recollection of one of America's most notable families in your hometown. Again, nothing really searchable. I don't know where he's touring. The article mentions that Miracle's son, Miracle Jr., did not wish to comment and has a statement from Clark Rafferty LaRue, through the Roottrees law firm. Miracle does not speak for his entire family. We're working carefully on a plan to definitively disprove any claims of infidelity on our family's past. The article also does not refute Miracle's claim that he's the oldest living Roottree, despite Sam Madsen being born the year before him. It was unclear if Miracle made the claim out of ignorance or spite. There's only one bit of inspiration here, and it could be his photo. Be interesting to see if he is in this tree. Now there is a possible. 1949. Miracle is in his 70s now in 99, so he'd have been born. It probably says somewhere where he's born. He was 68 at the time of this, so I think he was born at about 1929 or 30. So at this time, yeah, 1949, he'd have been like 19, 20 sort of age, so it's possible. It's possible that's him. It's a bit of an assumption, though, primarily based on the fact that he's got a photo we can use. But let's put Joanna in and Guy Hudson in there. So I think these two will be proven right. As we know, we need a batch of 4 to get anything sealed in, which doesn't include Riley. If we knew Joanna's maiden name, it would. Now, she was a secretary in the 1970s. I'm wondering if there's going to be like a list of company employees or something. I mean, that would be very useful. Lots of other photos of him. Just thinking how we get her maiden name. There's only 2 left in here now. So we've also got News Time now, which is a new publication. Maybe we should search for like all the main people. Okay, that's still the same thing, isn't it? We're just looking for Carl. The Roottrie company. About root with the period, nothing. Okay. See if that's come up anywhere else. Okay, so this is new. This has been redone. Okay, let's read through this. Much has changed over the last many months at the Roottrie Candy Company. One of those things is its website. Although during your last search you only got a good look at the history page, the design itself has clearly become much more sleek and very corporate. Gone is any history focused on Elias. Instead, the site seems to focus on the present status of the candy offerings, with high-quality JPEGs of each of their products. There are also some small ads for Root, which is a clothing company. Yeah, we know that. There is a small section at the bottom that lists the president as Clark. A short bio mentions that he was responsible for some of their marketing before taking the reins after the unfortunate plane crash. There's also a small memorial section for those that perished, including the Roottree sisters, Carl and Brenda. Now here are some new names that I don't think we've seen before. Kurt Johnson, Mark Sanchez, Trish King, and Eliza Nicholson. I mean, we know there was a was it Cicely Sanchez or someone was the author? It definitely felt like there was more to come from that. So I'm just gonna I'm gonna copy these and let's just make like a little note just with their names. First of all, I'd like to just Google Root, see what comes up there. Small section, memorial section, sorry, to the deceased members of the family, but contains no new information. The most recent catalogue, spring 1999, had an entirely black cover with no text. On the leadership, you learn that Root is currently managed by a designer who is apparently Brenda White's second in command. You don't recognise her name, and she seems unrelated to your search. However, there is also a scholarship page. On it you find information about the Roottrees Sisters Fashion Scholarship. It is awarded to 3 underprivileged high school girls each year who wish to pursue a career in fashion. Apparently it also gives them an opportunity to show off their designs on professional models on a real runway. According to the site, the fund was created directly from shares that would have contributed to the inheritance of the Roottree sisters if they were still alive. Like other aspects of the clan said trust, it is managed by this legal company. I think that's probably worth a search. Oh. Cicely Sanchez, yeah. I remind myself, she's an author. We looked up these books. There wasn't really anything there. It feels like there's this other non-fiction book that we don't know the title of that could be quite revealing. What if we look up Mark Sanchez then? Oh, okay. Well, they were the pilot and co-pilot of the Roottree jet during its crash last December, although the NTSB investigation has not been released. Foul play has been ruled out. Trish King was on the cabin crew. Okay. Elizabeth Nicholson, who went by Eliza, lived in a house with her family about 200 yards from the section of the woods where the plane crashed. She reportedly had a heart attack during the commotion, and her family were unable to reach emergency services due to the overwhelmed phone lines and ongoing storm. Her son-in-law managed to flag down an officer, but it was too late. Interesting. There's a lot of information considering they're not at first glance related. Non-family died in plane crash. I mean, I was going to search for all these names, but it seems like one thing I'm wondering, do their names appear in the list of things? Like, is there a King here? King? I'm assuming Sanchez is here. Sanchez. What were the other names? Johnson, Nicholson. Nicholson. Johnson. I can see Kurt. Trisha. No Eliza, but there is Elizabeth, so... Actually, did it say in there what? Elizabeth Nicholson. I'm wondering if they're on this tree somewhere. are the people who had an affair with, or the offspring of, some of these relationships. Okay, well let's look into some of these other things. So I want to look into Clark again. New president of the Roottrie Corporation. Does not include Root. In early March of '99 announced that both Clark and Ron would be taking over for what was essentially described as a transitional period in the aftermath of Six Pieces. About 2 weeks later, the company issued a press release that thanked Ron for his work, but announced that Clark was the new permanent president. Most of the information about Clark you knew already. Many descriptions of him tend to focus on his advertising career and that his mother was Lauren Roottree. Few seem to touch on his complex and volatile marital history. Since taking over, Clark has tried to remain out of the spotlight, but did have one notable foray into the public eye. He gained a lot of support when his first move was a statement in favour of accepting Sam and her family into the trust. This also served as an announcement from the clan said trust would no longer be handled by anyone in the family, since due to their financial motivation, none of them could ever truly be impartial. Now I might just kind of look for him in the various periodicals. I think we saw this, and the Roottree Rift is one that we are going to look up as well. Okay, let's look in other things. That's probably about it. Okay, so what was kind of the other notable things to look up? So the next one I probably will look up is the Roottree Rift. Three press releases from the candy company after the release of Six Pieces were referred to as the Roottree Rift due to the clear conflicts between them. The first was fairly standard. It stated there was no president of the company, but that the entire family was made aware of the release of the book, and that they would be meeting as soon as possible. Only then could they verify the legitimacy of the claims it raised and decide next steps. The second release was emailed to business newspapers 3 hours later and announced that after a vote, Ron Roottree would be taking over temporarily as interim president. It also went on to state that Ron was aware of the book, had verified the claims within, and would look into compensating Mrs. Madsen and her family immediately. It also stated that the company lawyers would be taking immediate steps with the family to revisit the trust's terms to make sure nothing like this could happen again. It was quickly clear to business reporters and analysts that the time between the two press releases would not have been logistically sufficient to gather a majority of the family, even using conference calls. This was reported on many news channels, and a third, much shorter press release came the next day. It claimed that a draft of the announcement was made prematurely and that Clark and Ron would be taking over as the company's first joint presidents. It also stated that any compensation planned would be based on a stringent verification process. Okay. I'm not seeing a huge amount there to jump off. We could look up Ron though. He's coming up quite a few times in this stuff. Okay, so there was an article about Ron in Business Watch, so let's go and check that out. Business Watch ran an article about 2 months after the Roottree Rift about what really happened with Roottree. The article mentions that nobody from Roottree they reached out to was willing to go on record. Instead, the timeline of events has been constructed from public record, accidental leaks, and a source on the inside. The only parts that are new to you are also the most vague, the ones supposedly confirmed by an anonymous source. The timeline says that the family actually had a preliminary vote after Carl died, but before the release of Six Pieces, and decided they wanted Ron Roottree to take over because of his experience running RR Productions, and because he was well known and respected. But Ron seemed way too eager and personally motivated. They were worried that he would gut the clan said trust to remove Robbie. The family was notoriously unwilling to do anything that could risk their wealth. They stalled, and Ron became frustrated with the delay. When Six Pieces came out, he saw his chance to force action while the family was in the limelight, and released the press release himself in an attempt to get the ball rolling faster. This caused chaos within the family. They tried to save face by allowing Ron to take over as co-president with Clark, but according to Business Watch's source, Ron was impossible to deal with. He seemed like he was unwilling to protect the Clanset Trust, and they let him go. After that, the role passed solely to Clark, who nobody was excited about. Harsh, but seemed like the safest choice. Okay. Again, not seeing a huge amount here. We've seen that article in the previous series. Okay. One thing that did jog my memory a little bit, just kind of looking at this tree, was that we have on only one place, and it's down as a family tree update. So this isn't infidelity. It doesn't look like we have two people who appeared on the previous tree, indicating that they were married, who have had a child. Now the only two people that kind of applies to, I think, bearing in mind the update part, I think is probably Brian and Stephanie. We know they were married. We know that she was expecting. So bear in mind this is only a year later. That kind of suggests that's probably the case. And my memory was nudged by reading the previously on thing, because Stephanie was, she was mentioned here. Stephanie Jones and Brian Jones featured in campaign posters. So maybe we should search for them as well. So how about Stephanie? Okay, we got a new picture. It seems Brian Jones has been busy updating Stephanie's campaign website. Two new sections exist. The first is baby photo. There you see a picture of their new family together in the hospital. According to the site, our daughter was named after her grandmother, which ended up being very fitting considering she was born the night before Christmas. Now, if we look at the previous tree, where's Stephanie? Here she is. So as the baby's grandmother would be her mother, who was Caroline. Named after her grandmother, Caroline, who ended up being very fitting considering she was born the night before Christmas. Okay, well, I think I get the gist of that. There's not much substance there right now, but it lists some small accomplishments and finishes with the recent rise in popularity and controversy surrounding my extended family, there has been some extra attention on me. Stay tuned for announcements in the coming months about how I plan to use this publicity to accomplish bigger and better things. Okay, well, let's take a look at what we got then. So we have a photo. Following the birth of their newborn girl. His new daughter is wearing an adorable little Santa hat, and his wife and Stephanie is giving her signature thumbs up move from her campaign literature. Right, let's take their photos. And I feel fairly confident in placing them here. So let's go with Stephanie, and Brian and baby. So we got Brian Jones. Oh yeah, it was Landon, wasn't it? Stephanie Landon. Who is a politician. That looks okay. Now we have baby does appear on the list. So they're going to be a Jones. And named after the mother. So Caroline isn't there. But Carol is. Christmas Carol. Hey! Got 32 this time. So we got Guy, we've got David Fellows, Stephanie and Carol. We also got Riley Fellows, Stephen Garland, Brian Jones. And his photo. Cool, cool. Okay. Sam.
Has Clark reached out to you? Well, let me give you a short history lesson about the last few months of my life. 3 different people contacted me, claiming that somewhere in their history, they might be Roottrees. First, that young man, the rapper. I ignored that one. He seemed dubious. But then I saw the news. I felt terrible. So I began helping the others. Because my doubts with Felix were so misfounded, I ended up putting too much faith in the second person that approached me. I went to the media prematurely. I admit my mistake there. But the third person who contacted me also had a credible case. Before I could help, the company got to them somehow. The fact that the family silenced them doesn't seem to fill me with hope when it comes to Clark's intentions. But you're making progress based on the leads he gave you. It's really hard for me to get a read on him. I'll let you handle it. I've sent you the case I've been working on, and some company records I managed to track down.
Woohoo!
The records are quite dense, but hopefully they're useful. Good luck!
Awesome. Well, that could be the foothold we need to make some more moves here. That's good. So we've got a couple of slight leads elsewhere. This is locked in that this is definitely going to be Christine. We just need her maiden name. Anyway, let's have a look at the new evidence that we've got. So we have a photo here. Who's this? This photo was given to you by Sam. A woman named Regina Clementine came to her and claimed that her husband has confessed he thinks he's a Roottrie. That would be this gentleman. The details of this case can be found in your evidence. Stuart is the older boy wearing a vest. The woman in the photo is Mary Beth Clementine, a singer who may have had an affair with Miracle Roottree. Okay, so I think this is the guy making the claims. Let's take those. Now, I did have a let's just go to the family tree quickly. So I did have a suspicion that this 1949 one could be Miracle. Now, if that's the case, this would be her. This would be him. He would have a brother. And we also have a photo of who would have been her husband. So I think this fits. I mean, obviously we don't know as far down as this yet, but I think this is probable. I was already speculating based on Miracle's age. So he'd have been a young man at this point, like 19, 20 years old, that kind of thing. Interesting. Okay, so we have so what exactly did it say? Came to her and claimed Regina Clementine says that her husband thinks he's a Roottree. Okay, so Regina is the wife of presumably Stuart. Presume that's Clementine unless told otherwise. So she was Mary Beth. Clementine. Don't know his name. And this was Regina. Clementine. Okay, that's got us some good movements. We got Miracle Roottree. We know he's a preacher. There. Okay, so that will, well, assuming he's in the right place, but let's assume he is. So that should go. That's probably the only one at the moment. But this seems like a promising thing here. So what's this? From 6 pieces to genealogy genie. Oh, that's us, isn't it? That's what she calls us, genealogy genie. So this is from Sam to us, basically. This is all the information I have about Regina, nee Salazar. Oh, okay, so let's go in and change her last name then to Salazar. From New Orleans, and her husband Stuart Clementine, which we've already got. She wrote to me about a month ago. Apparently the Roottrie lawyers went after her since then. By the time I received her letter and called her, she told me she couldn't cooperate anymore. Her husband, who is a police officer... Thank you. Is it going to be policeman or law enforcement? Police officer. There we go. So I think there's 1, 2 there that'll lock in. Never knew his father. Told her he thought he might be a Roottrie, but he's estranged from his family and didn't want to pursue it because he had no proof. She wrote to me behind his back. Normally I wouldn't be so sure, but she had some pretty credible facts. Some of it I've been able to confirm. Stuart's mother was named Mary Beth Clementine. She was pretty well known in the 30s to 50s, a singer who went on tour to a lot of churches. There we go, so we have another musician here. So I think that'll lock in. I think we've got 1, 2, 3. If we can get another one, we might see some stuff locking in here. You can look her up online, and she was a pretty big proponent of adoption. Okay, so she has a page. We can look her up. I know for a fact that she came to Butler County a few times, so she might be in the local news. And Regina said that Stuart told her that they always seem to spend a lot of time at the Miracle Church. She sent me a photo to prove that she's who she says she is. I've attached it to this email. That's probably the one we've seen. Sam Madsen. Yeah, so we have seen that. I think that's the one we've got. Yeah. Okay, let's look in... Shall I look at the company records? Let's do this first. Let's look up... let's start looking up Mary Beth. So she was... I'm going to copy her name as well for periodical searching. Was a singer most popular in the years between 42 and 59. She travelled around the country performing at churches. Her repertoire was a mix of religious and popular songs, and although she recorded a few records, they seem lost to time. The only one you find mentions was the cover of He's Got the Whole World in His Hands, released under the label New Edison. Could be worth looking. One thing Mary Beth was known for was her adoptions. She's listed on many sites that mention adoption and the history of adoption. She adopted 2 children in the late 40s, Stuart and Mark. Okay, so now we have Mark Clementine. With a K, I think, yeah, Mark Clementine, there we go. So I guess she could have claimed to have adopted them because they were not, because they were from an affair. One thing Mary Beth, she also spoke as an advocate for the benefits of adoption in front of the United States Congress in 1949, who were convening to debate and discuss the then recent first adoption of an African-American child to a white family in the US. She was specifically there to detail her experience going through the system to adopt Stuart. Her other son was adopted later, and according to a single line on one adoption site, under unusual circumstances. In '59 it surfaced that Mary Beth had been twice divorced, both times to her manager Sterling. Presumably Clementine, but, you know, that might not be the case. She may have kept her name, but I'll put it in for now. This ended her career with the religious audience that she'd been catering to, and while she performed occasionally since then, she mostly faded into obscurity. She passed away in 1994 at the age of 76 of a stroke. Now I want to look for her in the periodicals as well. Maybe not Teen Blast, but there might be. I will look through all of them. Here we go. She was reviewed many times in Modern Music Monthly, but the most popular recording was the release of her cover of He's Got the Whole World in His Hands, under New Edison. Modern Music Monthly has a very positive review of her cover, and the writer complimented her voice and the tone of her guitar. She had nothing to say about Mary Beth herself, so it's not of much use. There are also some other Mary Beth Clementine releases that appeared over the years. One of them was The Old Rugged Cross, which is the only song that was advertised but not reviewed. Okay, it could be worth coming back to that. Came to Butler County a few times and played religious hymns at the Miracle Congregation's church. She's mentioned twice, though the first visit from 49 was slightly more substantial. Miracle Congregation welcomes Mary Beth Clementine with open arms. The article mentions that the church's leader was moved when he heard Mary Beth's recording of one of his favourite hymns, His Eye is on the Sparrow, and reached out to her personally. His Eye is on the Sparrow holds a very special meaning to me. As you know, I've had very difficult upbringing, and it's no secret that my own eyes have always been a source of struggle. The song is about overcoming sadness and hardship through Jesus. If God can find a way to watch over every sparrow, he can certainly watch over those made in his image. My family's fortunes does me no good as a man of the Lord. It's much better spent spreading his word, and I felt a kinship with Mary Beth ever since I heard her voice. When I learned her personal story, I knew I had to help her in whatever way I could. The Bible is full of adoptions, from Moses to Esther. Spending your life taking care of those helpless to help themselves is incredibly noble. She and her son are welcome to stay in our guest home. Second visit was a few years later. The article mentions that her first visit was a massive success, and at the insistence of Miracle's congregation, she's returned for an encore performance. It also mentions that the unusual circumstances of her second son's adoption have prevented her from touring recently, but doesn't clarify. Okay. It's a religious hymn, been covered many times over the years. Okay. So, a small record label based in LA that existed for a few years in the 40s. It raced to release covers of songs that were gaining in popularity. According to a website about the history of recorded sound, it was named after its founder, Sterling Edison. Ah, so she did keep her maiden name. There we go. Its biggest claim to fame is being sued by the estate of Thomas Edison. Could be worth looking that up. You can also find references to New Edison and Mary Beth Clementine on sites about old records. One collector says that their Holy Grail is a re-release of the Old Rugged Cross, and says that the first edition was originally published before she legally changed her name. I wonder if... Yeah, we'll have a look at that. Another site claims that the police had to be called to New Edison Records after its owner, Sterling Edison, got in a physical altercation in public leading to a divorce. There are no cited sources or evidence, and the site's content seems user-submitted. There's an old email address at the bottom and the phrase, "Send me your stories about old Hollywood and I'll add them to the page." So let's look up this Old Rugged Cross as well. Right. Oh. A record producer who called himself Edison was immediately outed as not actually being named Edison. Edsel was the German last name, and at the time of the founding of the company, the US was at war with Germany. The company's founder immediately settled to try to get the case to go away, but the damage was done, so actually he isn't Edison at all, he's Edsel. There we go. I mean, this is only an optional one, but still. Okay, where do we go from here? That was good though. We dived deep enough to kind of get his real names. That's cool. Oh, when it was first reviewed by the magazine, it was listed the artist as Mary Beth Quaker. Oh, okay. I think probably the main thing there is that that wasn't her birth name. But she did change it legally, so her children would have had that surname. Quaker. So I think that's right. I think this is right. I think the two optionals are right. Now, Mark Clementine. We've obviously still got this. Don't worry, I've not forgotten about that. But let's look up Mark Clementine. Crocodile Clementine, listed on the website called the Infamy List. It's a massive list of criminals who are known for odd crimes. Although Mark's nickname would imply he hails from Florida or Australia, Mark is listed as being from LA. He has a pretty big entry. It seems like he's a real piece of work. There's a very small note about him being the basket baby of 1950, but almost everything else comes from his adulthood. He lost his job in '75 as a pilot for a regional airline after he tried to board the wrong airline's plane as he was drunk. He was charged with trespassing and assault. In '82, he was arrested for transporting smuggled animals over the Canadian and Mexican borders for an illegal reptile supplier in LA. He was apparently quite successful for the first 4 years, but was caught when he had to make an emergency landing in Portland, again Portland, after he was bitten on the foot by a crocodile. Portland Telegraph. Perfect. I think that's going to open up some stuff, because a lot of this stuff seems to go back to Portland. Apparently, the Portland Telegraph is credited as having given him his nickname. His mugshot from this incident has been added to your photos. In '93, he was released on parole, but his freedom didn't last long. He was arrested in '94 in San Diego for violating it in an attempt to visit his daughter's graduation. He famously punched the principal, a man named Billy Sims, which received national press. Okay, there's a lot of stuff to unpack here. But is criminal an occupation? No. Is prisoner or smuggler? Okay, well, what was his last legal job then? Pilot. But he lost that in '75. Oh, he's still flying though, so yeah, so I'd imagine he is a pilot, even if he's not. Oh, hello. We have Miracle, Clementine, Stuart Clementine, Mark Clementine, and Mary Beth Quaker. Lovely stuff. I felt that probably was a fairly good thing there. We got all the optionals that we kind of had links to locked in as well. Very nice. Okay, well, I think this this Mark Clementine one seems like it might be quite a fruitful thing. But I think that's probably a fairly good place to leave it this time, actually. We made some decent progress at last. I feel like this is probably going to, we might have enough to kind of kick off into the rest of this tree now, as as Mark Clementine is apparently quite a notable figure. We've got, before I go, let me just add in this periodical before I forget. Portland Telegraph, let's just look up Mark. There we go. We'll read that next time. I just wanted to make sure I locked in the Portland Telegraph, because I think that's going to be quite useful. Now on the evidence tape... Okay, so... there he is. He looks a little bit like Kurt Cobain, doesn't he? Multnomah County Corrections. So I'll just quickly add his alternate photo in there. Cool. Okay, well, thanks very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, please do hit that like button. Leave me a comment as well. Let me know what you thought about our progress in this episode. I think it was good to lock in these original 4. Using a little bit of intuition there, but once we've done that, we got the extra evidence that kind of kicked off a lot of stuff over here. So yeah, very promising, I think. Let me know in the comments your thoughts anyway. And if you're watching this and not yet subscribed to the channel, if you could do that as well, that'd be fantastic. So thanks very much, and I hope to see you next time. Bye for now.